And good day, and welcome to number 16 in American national government. We're talking about the First Amendment, and we're talking about the last part of it, freedom of assembly and redress of grievances. Okay, let me read you the words of the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, talked about that, the Establishment Clause, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, the Free Exercise Clause, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, and here's the part we're talking about now, or the right of the people peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. In other words, the right of the people to get together and the right of people to complain and say, hey, we've got an issue here. Let's deal with it. So that's what the Constitution says. Let's just look at this right of assembly and petition government for a redress of grievances. What exactly are we talking about? Well, this right of assembly simply allows people to get together. You can get together in a political party, you can get together in a special interest group, you can get together in a business, you can get together in a class. It allows you to get together and organize and have a voice as one. So out of many comes one voice. And that's all allowed under this, the right of assembly. And it then says, hey, we can complain. We can go to the government and we can say, hey, we need to fix this. We got a problem here. Okay, now, government's role in all of this assembly and complaining is really limited. Government can regulate where you do it, when you do it, and they do that by issuing permits. They can even regulate how you do it by saying no violence allowed. But they cannot regulate what you say. They cannot regulate why you're getting together. They cannot regulate what your complaint is. So, in other words, government can regulate your conduct, but they cannot regulate your content. Conduct is regulated, content is not. Okay, important distinction. Now that I've said all that, let's make it real. What are we talking about? So you and your friends want to get together and you want to complain about something. What do? Well, what you do is you go to the government, say, I'd like a permit. Okay, and this is where the government regulation comes in. In the permit, you sit down and you say, okay, we're going to meet from this time to this time, and we want to meet at this location. Okay, and this is what we're going to do while we're there. Okay, and believe it or not, governments actually have places where you can go and protest against the government. Okay, free speech areas, if you will. Okay, and they're actually set up and designated by the government. So I've been here in the city of Abilene for 26 years. I'm sorry, 24 years, and I've seen protests in front of City Hall. I've seen protests at the county courthouse. I've seen protests at Everman Park. All of those have been allowed. Government permits are there. And what the government does is they have to be reasonable. And this is a very key word, reasonable. The government must be reasonable in its regulations, okay? So you go and you ask for a permit, and what the government says to you is you can protest, but you can only protest at 2 o'clock in the morning, and we're going to give you a spot over by the railroad tracks. No, government cannot do that, doesn't have that right. Instead, the government has to be reasonable, okay? And they say, okay, we have a place set up for you at the Taylor County Courthouse, and at the Taylor County Courthouse, you can have a protest. And you say, I want the protest at 8 o'clock in the morning on Monday. And the government says, no, we got to be reasonable about this. And they say, the problem with 8 o'clock on Monday morning is very, very simple. And what that problem is there's people coming in to that parking lot, there's people going out, with all the people coming for jury duty. It's too busy, it would be too disruptive. Can you do it at 10? Government's being reasonable, we have to be reasonable too. And that's really how it works out. And then what you do in the protest, government's not going to regulate your content. Government is not, let me repeat that, they're not going to regulate your content. Okay, they can regulate your conduct, when and where, but not your content. Okay, so key things to remember about this part of the First Amendment is the government must be reasonable in its regulations. Okay, and the government can regulate your conduct, but not your content. All right? All right, that's all there is to say about this. And when we come back, we're going to take up the Second Amendment.